Hey, HarryWilmington here. Welcome back. If you watched my last video, I had a guy write me asking about a woman that had depression and whether or not he should continue to pursue her. And so I talked about that specific situation in that video. But in this video, I'm going to be talking about 5 reasons you should not consider dating anybody that tells you they have depression. Now, I want to make a caveat and a clarification because I know people are going to watch this and say, that's not fair. People that are depressed, it's a clinical thing and they should be able to get love too. You know what? I'm going to say this. If a person has diligently gone to therapy, worked on themselves, and if they are clinically depressed, have been put on medications that they're regularly taking, so that way they can regulate their emotions and be in a better state of mind when they're with a partner, then I would still say I wouldn't go for it, but it'd be a better situation in terms of at least they've got portions of their life together. Maybe they had other stuff going on in the past, and so they've overcome those things, and they're able to be in a better space to date. If that's the person you're dealing with, then it's a better consideration, all right? But what I find is that the majority of people that are going through depression are going through it for a variety of reasons, whether it's like, you know, they had traumas in the past, or it's drug related, or they just are very anxious about things. And so to that end, I do want to talk about how their depression is going to affect you, because you could think they're the, best person in the whole world. They're nice to you. They're kind of this and that. And you might think that, well, there's other women out here that don't have nearly the same qualities as this girl that I've run up against. And I think she could still, it would be a good shot at a good relationship if only, we do certain things or whatever. And I want to point out to you some of the major stressors and things that can arise from somebody with depression when you're dating them, okay? And hey, I've tried it, okay? I've tried dating women who have mentioned that they're depressed and they're on Prozac and these other things. And what I find is that at the end of the day, the energy and effort it takes to try to quote unquote keep that person happy is not worth it. It's just not. I'm sorry. If you're watching this and you have a depression episode, then I can't say anything but like, get some therapy and get some help and get on whatever meds you got to get on, because it's not going to be fair to the person you're trying to date if you haven't dealt with that the right way. So let's go ahead and get into it. The first reason not to date someone with depression, all right, is communication difficulties. Depression can make it very difficult for someone to express their thoughts and feelings, which can create communication barriers in a relationship, all right? So you have somebody that's depressed for whatever reason, and you want to try to talk to them. Let's say they do something that bugs you or annoys you or is a misstep in the relationship. Now you're thinking, hey, you know what? Not a big deal. I can go to them and just talk about it and say, hey, I noticed that you did this thing and this was my reaction to it and I want to talk about it. Well, a person that's going through depression is already down on themselves. So you coming to them and giving them the news that they did something else that is causing you to potentially see them in a negative light is only going to cause more turmoil, okay? A lot of them aren't really able to take that news with a grain of salt. They're just going to take it and assume you're accusing them of things, which then puts them into more of a depression, which puts them in a bad mood. And now you were coming to them and trying to talk to them about a thing that involved you. And now instead you're trying to make them feel better, even though they're the ones that were doing the thing that caused you to go to them with the grievance in the first place, all right? And so that's a thing that can happen when you're dating somebody with depression. On top of that, person may not be really good at being able to express their emotions in the right way. So let's reverse it. Let's say you're doing something that bugs them. Well, if they're depressed, they might think, well, I don't want to rock the boat and I don't want to do whatever. And so instead of talking to you about it when it's like a lightweight thing, they just build resentment over it over time until eventually it either blows up or they're suddenly trying to break up with you and you don't know why. And it's like, because they have all the stuff that was bugging them about the situation and they just never told you about it, all right? So recognize that that's a thing, that when somebody's depressed and they're focusing all their energy on how sad their life is or whatever, that can result in them not being able to adequately talk to you about things and emote in ways that are going to actually be positives for the relationship. The second reason not to consider dating someone with depression is emotional instability. Depression can often cause mood swings and emotional roller coasters, which can be difficult for a partner to navigate. Yeah, somebody that has depression could be seemingly cheerful and upbeat one day, and the next, they're crying, they're yelling, they're throwing things, and, that becomes your issue because you decided to date them. So if they're having a crying spell, you got to deal with that. If they're, going through an episode at work and they're suddenly having anxiety and they're just being mad about stuff or being unsure and being fearful, you got to be the one to dig them out that hole. Now, here's the thing. As a guy with dating women, a good portion of women, it's estrogen and emotions and stuff like that. They can already be kind of all over the place in that way. And not to say guys can't be, but just traditionally, if people are observant, women typically have the ebb and flow because their hormones are changing from week to week depending on where their cycle is and stuff, right? And that's what they regular women. But at least with regular women, they can be like, okay, I feel myself going through something, and so I'm not trying to take it out on you, and so just, appreciate you being there, but it's my thing. I understand it. Women that are going through a depression, that is a whole different roller coaster that you do not want to ride. So you know what? You can avoid that altogether. If a woman's telling you up front, hey, just I'm going through depression, recognize that means that at some point in that relationship, if you're not careful, and even if you are careful, just know her emotions are not going to be predictable. And if you're a guy that's trying to create a sense of stability in your relationship, that's going to always be a factor that throws that out of whack. It is something you seriously need to consider, because do you want to deal with emotional volatility for 10, 20, 30 years? It's already hard enough to most of you guys to do that just in the dating process, let alone in an actual relationship. So that's something to consider. The third reason to not date someone with depression is because they have self-esteem issues. Depression can cause feelings of worthlessness and low self-esteem, which can impact a woman's ability to feel confident and secure in a relationship. Now, you might think to yourself, but hey, I can just tell them how great they are, and I can just keep letting them know that, and they'll be able to eventually feel confident. As a guy who has tried that, where I dated a woman for a good amount of time, and I'd be like, hey, you're so great. Hey, you're awesome. Hey, you can do whatever, this and that. But that hamster wheel in their head, that constant talk of self-doubt in their head, that doesn't go away just because you said a few kind things to them. Because if they're quote unquote in a depression, then it's always gonna be a thought of maybe my significant other doesn't actually know the real me, because the real me is not that great of a person. The real me can't do anything she puts her mind to, and you're gonna be trying to fight that. But she's had years prior to meeting you of talking to herself about how horrible of a person she is, how not great she is, and it's a bigger fight. Like, she's had that in her head longer than you saying positive stuff. And so I think sometimes as guys, we want to take on the superhero mantle of, I can come in and say some awesome things about her and how pretty she is and compliment her all the time and tell her that I think she's great and she's ambitious and yada, yada, yada. And she'll eventually see that. And it's an admirable trait to have as a guy, but it's also not realistic. They have to do their own work to get to that place. And a lot of women with depression never get to that place. Do you want to risk potentially 10, 20, 30, 40 years of your life being with somebody that you hope may possibly eventually feel confident in themselves, but more likely never will? I'm telling you, it's not worth your time. The fourth reason to not date somebody with depression is social withdrawal. Depression can lead to social isolation and a lack of interest in activities, which can make it difficult for a woman to engage in shared activities and social events. Now, if you're watching this as an introvert, you already know it can be a bit of a pill already to get you out of the house. But that doesn't mean you don't want to, because you have a small set group of friends that when they say we're gonna go eat dinner, we're gonna have a short little get together, we're going to the movies, you're probably gonna wanna go. Now imagine the few times you wanna go out being hampered by a woman that has depression, that is, every time you're about to go out, it's all of a sudden like, oh my God, I'm having a crying fit. Oh no, I'm feeling depressed. Oh my God, I have anxiety. And now she wants to stay home, which means if you're the loving boyfriend or spouse, you probably got to stay home too. And so it's going to start affecting how often you go out, how often you see your friends, because she's going to be basically trying to withdraw herself from the population at large. And if she's a girlfriend that has high interest in you, she's going to want you around when that happens. And that's not going to be a good look for you in terms of your social life with other people. So that's something, again, you got to consider. Do you want to basically stay in the house all the time, or always be at her beck and call for when she suddenly has a mood swing and now she needs you to talk her off the ledge, which now affects you being able to hang out with other people in your life besides her? It's something to seriously consider. The fifth reason to not date someone with depression is, let's say they are on medication, right? A lot of the medications out there have various side effects. If a woman is taking medication to manage her depression, she may experience side effects that can impact her mood. It can impact her behavior. It can also affect like her outer appearance, whether it's her weight, whether it's her breaking out on her face. Like there are a variety of side effects that can come with depression medicines. And so you have to ask yourself, do you want to risk dating somebody with depression that's taking meds that could have some adverse effects that you then, being the boyfriend or significant other in a relationship, also have to deal with? These are all things you need to seriously consider, because it's all fun and cool when it's like, oh, she looks hot and we're hooking up and whatever. But when real life hits and these depression waves hit and her medication is suddenly going off whack, or she's feeling weird about it, or she's on medication and it makes her feel so weird she wants to get off of it, but then that leads her to more depressing. Like, these are all things that I don't think guys are considering when they're just looking at, oh, she's so hot and she'll do me. And you gotta be more grown up than that when you're picking women, all right? Oh, and then here's a bonus reason not to date women with depression, is that I find, yes, there are people out there that are clinically depressed and that have, chemical stuff going on in them that cause them to feel down about themselves. That is very real. But there's a good portion of women that have depression because their life is just total chaos. And that could be whether they had family issues in the past, incidents that happened to her that she doesn't want to talk to you about, whether she tried drugs or alcohol at a young age. There can be a variety of reasons. But the point is, when these things happen, their life usually has a lot of drama in it, a lot of trauma in it, and a lot of chaos going on. And as you being with her in this relationship, all that stuff is going to affect you. You can't separate it. You can't assume, well, if she has something dramatic happen to her in her life while we're together, that's just her stuff. No. If you get with her in a long-term relationship, in a marriage of some kind, then all her drama and all the stuff she deals with when she's going through a depression falls on you. And that's before we get into the whole thing of like medical insurance. If you guys get married, that's now on your insurance to help with all that kind of stuff and covering for costs of things. If she has an episode and has to go to the hospital, like there's an abundance of things that could potentially go wrong and that are going to affect you in a major way if you date somebody that has depression. And hey, life's already hard enough. Life is not perfect and it's going to throw hardships to you. Purposely picking out a hardship by picking somebody that has this kind of condition is not in your favor. Now, again, for those of you that watch this, it might be ladies that are watching this to say, he's being biased because how dare he say women that have depression don't need love. I didn't say any of that. I'm saying as a guy, for the guys watching this, you got to look at your odds and your probabilities, all right? If you're wanting to have a peaceful relationship with a relatively sane woman that's going to be able to be a teammate and be helpful to your life, then I'd say on the probability scale of that woman being somebody that has depression, it's very, very low. And I want you guys to play in the high probability bracket, where if you pick a woman, the chances for being pretty decent and being able to be there for you in the way you need her to be and vice versa, and also have a good attitude and not cause any major issues, is gonna be high, all right? Women with depression, sorry to say, you don't have that. If you do have depression, I highly recommend, again, seek out counsel, seek out medications that are ideally not gonna throw you too much for a loop, or if it's based on trauma, figure out your trauma. Hey, I had my dad die when I was young, and my mom put us right into counseling for like a year and a half so we could know how to adjust our lives and not be defined negatively by that incident, okay? So I get it. I've been through trauma. We've all been through trauma. I think, Kevin, somebody should say, like, the world does not owe you understanding, meaning that you got to be the one that understands your situation and be able to fix that crap before you date somebody, all right? But for you guys that do have a good head on your shoulders, don't date these depressed women. There are too many women out there that have a relatively good head on their shoulders that are more sane and more healthy and viable candidates for dating than women that are depressed. That's just the bottom line of that, right? Now, if you yourself as a guy are not in a place to be able to actually know how to hold on to those women when you get them, then I highly recommend going to introvertdatingsuccess.com, getting my free handout, the Girlfriend Roadmap Checklist, and also checking out our coaching options that are available, as well as our coaching programs, all designed to help you date as an introvert while still getting your alone time, all right? Be sure to subscribe to this channel and like this video, and I will catch you guys on the next one. I'm out. Peace.
You need to call her on her cell phone.